All right, today we're going to do a deep dive into Linkin Park's Heavy, but we're not just going to look at it as a song. No, we're going to deconstruct its entire sonic and psychological architecture. We're going to figure out how every single sound, every note, and every breath was basically engineered to make you feel that weight it talks about. Okay, let's get into it.
The song kicks off with probably one of the most raw, honest lines in modern music. There's no poetry, no hiding behind a metaphor. It is a straight-up confession, a window right into a mind at war with itself. This isn't just a lyric, it's practically a diagnosis, and it sets the stage for the entire psychoacoustic journey we're about to take.
So when Heavy first came out, it was a real shock for a lot of fans. But what we've got to understand is that this wasn't just a change in sound for the band. It was a massive shift in their entire creative philosophy for the album, One More Light. The heaviness they were chasing wasn't about distorted guitars anymore. It was about the weight inside your own head. And the crazy thing is, the core of this song came from a place of just radical vulnerability. In the studio, the band and their collaborators would start their sessions by just talking. Seriously. They talk about the little everyday things that pile up and up until they feel completely unbearable. Mike Shinoda called it that feeling of when it rains, it pours. And this really shows you that huge shift in thinking perfectly. I mean, Linkin Park's classic method was to build a track from the instruments up, right? Start with a killer riff or a big instrumental hook. But for Heavy, they completely flipped the script. They started with the feeling, with the words, with the melody, that emotional core. And then they built the entire musical world around it. Now, to help them figure out this new process, they brought in some of the best in the business, some real heavy hitters in pop songwriting. But listen, the goal here was not to chase a radio hit. They brought in Julia Michaels and Justin Tranter because these two are masters of what's known as confessional songwriting. It's the art of taking these messy, raw feelings and turning them into powerful, direct lyrics. They were there to be emotional translators, really. So, how in the world do you take a feeling like mental exhaustion and turn it into actual sound? Well, this is where we get into the psychoacoustics of it all. Every single choice they made from here on out was deliberate. It was all designed to put you, the listener, right inside an anxious and tired mind. Okay, so the song's entire architecture is built for emotional impact. It's an F-sharp minor, a key that musicians often connect with this deep, thoughtful sadness. The tempo, it's a slow, dragging 75 beats per minute. It almost mimics a tired, worn-out heartbeat. And the production is intentionally sparse. Instead of those huge walls of sound, you get these minimal synths that feel like they're closing in on you, creating this really boxed-in feeling. And then there are the trap-style drums. Those twitchy, frantic hi-hats sound like simmering anxiety, a mind that just will not shut off. Well, the deep kick drum feels less like a beat and more like a heart pounding in a tiny room. The result is a soundscape that feels totally claustrophobic, like you can't get a full breath. Now, to really understand this track, we have to look at it through the lens of what I call vocal psychology. This is where we don't just analyze what's being sung, but how it's being sung. The actual texture of a voice. Is it breathy? Is it strained? What's the rhythm? It reveals everything about the emotional state that's behind the words. And this is just a brilliant example of the two sides of this internal fight. Chester Bennington's performance is so raw and strained, you can literally hear the physical effort in his voice. It's the sound of someone pushing against this massive internal force. And then Kiiara comes in. Her vocal is breathy and intimate. It's not a voice of conflict. It's a voice of shared experience. Her part almost universalizes the struggle. It says, hey, this isn't just one person's battle. This is something we all feel. Okay, so they built the sound of this internal conflict. But how do you actually show it? The music video for Heavy is a masterclass in psychological symbolism. It takes that internal battle and makes it brutally, physically real. It's all about confronting the darkest part of yourself. To really get the video, we've got to touch on this key concept from psychology, the Jungian shadow. The shadow is basically all the parts of our personality we try to hide or push down. Our insecurities, our toxic thoughts, our worst impulses. The psychologist Carl Jung believed that you can only really know yourself once you turn around and face that shadow self. And the video follows this journey to a T. It starts with a trigger, a tense moment in a group therapy session. Then the shadow literally appears. A double of Chester shows up, taunting him. This leads to this violent physical fight in a bathroom, which is this incredible metaphor for fighting your own self-destructive patterns. But here's the most important part. The fight doesn't end with a winner. It ends with surrender. It ends with vulnerability and finally accepting that this is a fight you can't win on your own. And that all leads to what Mike Shinoda called the single most important line in the entire song. This is the whole point, the entire struggle, the wait, the fight. It's all because he's holding on too tightly. The solution isn't to fight harder, it's to just let go. Freedom doesn't come from winning the battle, it comes from just ending it.
Of course, when a band this big makes a change this dramatic, you just know there's going to be a reaction. And when Heavy was released, it faced one of the most intense backlashes of Linkin Park's career. It really set up this fascinating story about its controversial and ultimately really profound legacy.
I mean, this chart says it all, doesn't it? Critically, the song got torn to shreds by some people. The singles jukebox gave it a 3.5 out of 10. Ouch! But commercially? Whoa. It was a massive success, eventually going double platinum in the US. This huge difference just shows you how polarizing the song was. The critics, and a big chunk of the old school fan base, they just were not ready for this sound.
So the accusations started flying. Fans were saying the band abandoned their roots, that they were selling out to pop radio. Some even said it sounded like the Chainsmokers. But Mike Shinoda's defense was always consistent. He kept reminding people that the band's core idea, their hybrid theory, was always about mixing genres and trying new things. He stood by the fact that the pop writers were there for emotional depth, not for hits, and that the band had complete artistic control.
And then everything changed. After the tragic loss of Chester Bennington in 2017, the entire world heard this song in a completely new light. The context shifted, and it was heartbreaking. What some people had just brushed off as a shallow pop song was suddenly painfully understood for what it always was, a devastatingly honest and profound cry for help. The lyrics weren't abstract anymore. They were a testimony. This song's power is just undeniable now. With over 215 million views on its official video alone, Heavy has become so much more than a single. It's an anthem for mental health awareness. It's a touchstone for millions of people who have felt that exact same weight. Its legacy has totally overshadowed its initial controversy. And so, all of this leaves us with a really big, thought-provoking question. The story of Heavy kind of forces us to ask, can we ever really understand a piece of art the moment it comes out? Or does its true meaning only reveal itself over time, shaped by tragedy, by context, and by our own deeper understanding of what it means to be human?